Hi, I'm Jamie, and I'm a watch nerd. So I'm back. I do apologise for being MIA over the last few months. I'll give a brief explanation why towards the end. But today, seeing as I'm back, I thought I would talk to you about something a little bit different to what I've done before, which is that I want to talk to you a bit about one of my very favourite artistic movements within watchmaking, which is the Bauhaus movement. And what I'm going to do is overview the 4 watches in this style that I would actually buy and give you the reasons why, so that if you're considering buying a Bauhaus watch, then you can try and work out what's important to you from maybe seeing what different options are out there. First though, I want to explain a little bit about what Bauhaus actually is. For those who already know, just skip ahead. For those who don't, Bauhaus was a German art school founded in 1919, which ran until 1933, and they became famous for their approach to design. They wanted to combine aesthetic with function in its simplest and purest form, and what they ended up with was this clean, clear, modern, just gorgeous aesthetic that you can still see the influence of throughout design today, especially in product design, in interior design, and indeed in watchmaking. It's one of those styles that once you recognize it, you can see every time it's being used. It's so clear to see where Bauhaus is being used, and so many watchmakers have tried to incorporate it into their design ethos, very few successfully in my opinion. But as I said, there are only 4 that I would genuinely consider buying, so I'm going to get straight on with my list. Number 1, the Junghans Max Bill. This is the original Bauhaus icon. Many people would say, in fact, that this is the only true Bauhaus watch on the market, and in a lot of ways, it's quite difficult to argue with that. Because the designer, Max Bill, for which the watch range is named, was in fact a student of the Bauhaus art school, and in 1961 he combined with German watchmaker Junghans to create the Max Bill range, a design of which is basically still the same all these years later. And that's why this is the best watch to start this list off with. The design of the Max Bill incorporates all of the major Bauhaus ideals: symmetry, clean lines, and every aspect of the watch having its own function but also being aesthetically beautiful. You have these beautiful thin hour markers heading into the center, and these lovely thin hands as well, which come out from the center, which perfectly harmonize and mirror the lines coming into the center. So you've got the lines coming out and the lines coming in, and it creates this beautiful aesthetic whilst being entirely functional. You have a lovely sense of symmetry in that, which is only broken if you get a date window which appears at the 3, which I find is a bit of a shame. I would much prefer it at the 6 because that then wouldn't break that symmetry. So for me, if I were to be buying one of these watches, I would want to get one without a date if possible. That is an option. You can get these watches in hand winding and automatic ETA based movements, and you can also get quartz options, which means there's always a movement option for you. The watch has a very simple case design, which I think would be in keeping with Bauhaus, with very thin bezel around the edge, which allows the dial to really be the star of the show, which it is. And you have this lovely domed crystal, which is very common among Bauhaus-styled watches, which looks absolutely stunning. One of the drawbacks in recent years is that for the Max Bill, Junghans have continued to use plexiglass to build their crystals. For me, for something made today, I would not ideally want plexiglass. I would want something sapphire or mineral crystal at the very least. Which is something they have started to incorporate in the last year, putting sapphire crystals on their more popular Max Bill models, but it's not covering the whole range yet. For a watch at this price point, which is about the £1,000 mark, I would want more than plexiglass. Surprisingly, this is the only watch on this list that has any luminescence. You'll find lume pips at the 12, the 3, the 6, and the 9, as well as a little bit on the hands, which is a really useful addition. Another really great point about this whole range is that there are so many different options. So you have the main range, but you also will find there's a chronograph range, and even more interesting, there's an entire women's range, which I think is really wonderful. And these come in smaller sizes and slightly different colors. So there really is a Max Bill for everybody. For me, in terms of design, I would pick a 38 style, and I would either go for the simple dash markers, probably on black, because I think that's the really classic style, but I might also be tempted to go for the numerals because I really do think the numerals are stunning. The font is really nice. So if you're someone who values history, who values tradition, and who values something, a really great story around their watch, then the Max Bill is definitely the one for you. Number 2, the Orient Bambino. This is the most affordable option on this list. It also happens to be the Japanese option, if that's something that matters to you. Orient's Bambino range has become a bit of a fan favourite among watch lovers, and it's really obvious to see why. With fully in-house movements, beautiful domed mineral crystals, a 40.5mm diameter, and a wide variety of dial designs and colours, you'll get a huge amount of watch for your money with this range. The prices sometimes come in at under £100, which is unbelievable. The version 3 is the Bauhaus-inspired model, still incorporating that same sense of symmetry that you find with the Max Bill, with lovely little dash markers and, in fact, batons at the 12, 6, 3 and 9. It perfectly captures that same symmetry and simplicity of Bauhaus and functionality where it's necessary. But again, that symmetry is only broken by the date window at the 3, which again is slightly disappointing from my perspective. For me, the thing that makes this watch really unique, though, is its hands. The minute and hour hands are these flat-ended, utilitarian-looking pieces of metal, which still mirror the dash, batons and markers on the watch, but they have a completely different feel. It's not this sort of elegant line, it's utilitarian, it's a little bit more rugged, I think you could say. And I think having that unique aspect means it doesn't just feel like a copy. My pick would be the grey dial. I think it's just a little bit more unusual than the other colour options, which is currently being sold on Amazon at £101.42, which is an insane price for the amount of watch that you're getting at that price point. It should be pointed out that there are a few drawbacks to this watch, as you might expect at this sort of price point. As I mentioned before, there's the date window at the 3, which I personally don't like. And in addition, the lovely domed crystal, though beautiful, because the watch is a little bit larger at 40.5mm, it can feel rather chunky on a smaller wrist. So if you're a smaller wristed person, this might not suit you. But the really frustrating thing I find about this watch is that the lug width is 21mm. Now at 20mm or 22mm, you have a lot more options for replacement bands and bracelets. Now the Bambino comes on a perfectly acceptable leather strap, but it's not the highest quality, and it's something that personally I would want to replace. So having fewer options is a little bit annoying from that point of view. But at this price point, all these things are forgivable because you are getting so much watch for your money with the Bambino. So if you want a Bauhaus-inspired watch that doesn't break the bank but is still steeped in watchmaking pedigree, then the Orient Bambino is the way forward for you. Number 3, the Hamilton Intra-Matic. So this is the Swiss option. Even though Hamilton are historically an American watchmaker, they were bought in recent years by the Swatch Group, who are a Swiss brand. So now you have this wonderful combination of American heritage design, but with Swiss modern watchmaking technique, which is actually a really lovely combination. It probably has the cleanest and clearest dial of all the options on this list. It still has dash markers, but this time only at the hours. The minute markers are missing, which gives this extra sense of clarity and this lovely negative space between the hour markers, which is really beautiful. And in addition, the hands, of which you'll only find hour and minute, are lovely, long, thin, elegant hands, which probably match up best to the hour markers of any of the watches on this list, because they are so thin and so elegant, and it's just stunning. You'll also find, and this is a big plus for me, a date window at the 6, which therefore doesn't break the lovely sense of symmetry that this dial has. It has a lovely sapphire crystal, which is still domed, but it's a much lower profile dome than you'll find on the Max Bill or on the Bambino. And in doing that, it means that it gives a slightly more modern feel to the watch and gives it this sort of increased level of elegance and simplicity and understatedness, but without drawing any attention away from the heritage design of the dial. It comes in 2 sizes, a 38mm and a 42mm. Personally, I would steer clear of the 42mm. I think of something in this sort of understated style, 42mm is too big, unless you have really large wrists. The watch comes with a lovely exhibition case back, which is always a plus, and comes in a variety of dial colours. including the original release, which was a silver dial and a black dial, which is personally where I would go for this. But you can also get more recent releases in different colors, but will have this sort of gradiated dial on it, darker around the edges and lighter in the middle. Personally, this isn't to my taste. I think it's a little bit much, but if it's something that you like, then you can't go wrong. The one thing, however, that I really cannot stand about this watch is its bracelet. So you can buy the Intra-Matic on a lovely, simple leather band, which has no stitching on it and perfectly is in keeping with the simplicity of the dial and of the rest of the watch. But you can also get it on a complicated, garish, flashy bracelet, which not only detracts from that simplicity of the dial, but is not in keeping with Bauhaus ideals at all. I won't deny that in pictures and on film it looks really cool, but when you put it on the wrist, and I have tried it on, it just looks horrible. So what I would do if I was you and you wanted an Intra-Matic is get the leather strap, but then maybe buy something like a Milanese, a little bit like this, which I think would be much more in keeping with the Bauhaus style and would look much better on the wrist. But without this bracelet, the Intra-Matic is an absolutely stunning piece of design. And coming in at between around £650 and £900 is the second most affordable watch on this list. My choice would be the 38mm in either the silver or black. They're both absolutely beautiful. And I would obviously get it on the leather strap. So if you're looking for simplicity, you're looking for elegance, you're looking for Swiss watchmaking, then the Intra-Matic is the way forward for you. Number 4, the Nomos Orion. So this is the modern twist on the classic design. A German company founded in 1990, Nomos have fast become one of the most well-respected luxury watch brands in the world. And they're well known to have drawn heavily from the purest Bauhaus style throughout their entire range. You'll see it throughout every aspect of their collection. So any watch you buy from Nomos will be a Bauhaus-inspired watch. But for me, the range to go for is the Orion. Using simple batons for the hour markers and having dashes for the minute track, you again get to have that wonderful relationship between hour marker and hand. Again, this watch has lovely, thin, long, elegant hands, and that relationship I think is so important in these designs of watches. There are a few wonderful twists that Nomos use in order to give their watch a little bit of a unique aspect. The first of this is their use of colour in the dial, in the hands, and in the hour markers. You won't see many Bauhaus-inspired watches that are outside the realms of grayscale. So adding those pops of colour gives that unique feel, but also allows it to be a little bit more flamboyant, a little bit more playful, and allows it to be a little bit more modern. The Orion too has a convex sapphire crystal, but this is the lowest profile and sleekest of all of the watches on this list. In fact, in pictures and videos, you could almost think the crystal's flat. The domed crystal is a hallmark of the traditional way of creating Bauhaus watches and designing Bauhaus watches. So for the Nomos Orion, I understand why they've taken that and flattened it off, because it's a much more modern feel, which is what Nomos are about. The last design aspect, which I think gives a huge amount of charm and unique feel to this watch design, is the seconds hand, which appears in a subdial at the 6. Having it at the 6 is really important because once again, it doesn't allow that symmetry to break up, whilst having this lovely unique little aspect to the design. These watches come with lovely in-house movements, and you can get display backs as well, so you can see the movement inside. It's a true luxury piece, much more so than any other on this list, and the price reflects that. My personal choice would either be the 39mm Neo-Matic, which is their automatic range, which I would get in a white dial with blued hands and lovely gold batons. It's not too flashy, but having those little pops of colour gives it that lovely little bit of flamboyance, which I rather like. And that watch comes in at £2,980. The other alternative that I really love that I would also go for is the 38mm manual wind in midnight blue with gold markers. It's absolutely stunning. A completely different feel. It's much moodier, much more understated, but it's absolutely stunning. And that comes in at £1,740. So if you want something that is luxury, that is modern and has these pops of colour, a little bit of flamboyance, then get yourself a Nomos Orion. So there we are, that's 4 Bauhaus inspired watches that I would actually buy. The original icon, the affordable option, the Swiss option, and the modern option. All great choices to fit in with whatever's important to you. Which one would you pick? Or would you pick something entirely different? Let me know in the comments. I would love to hear from you. And all the links to the watches I've talked about are in the description below, so you can check them out for yourself. Please let me know if you like this video. A bit of feedback is always welcome. As I mentioned before, I have been missing for the last few months. COVID took a little bit of a toll on my mental health, and I wanted to make sure that I was healthy and ready and motivated to make the best content I could about watches. I love sitting here and talking about something I'm so passionate about to you, and I'm so grateful that you are watching this. I'm so grateful to anyone that's watching this, and I really hope you'll come back and join me for the next one. So until then, cheerio.